Your dog sitting quietly on your sofa did not simply start as a puppy picked from a litter. It started out as a wolf that decided humans were worth the risk. Long before anyone planted a seed, built a house, or fired a piece of pottery, one wild predator looked at us and chose to stay close. And the strange part is, it might have chosen us before we ever chose it back. Rewind to the last ice age, somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years ago. Historians and geneticists still argue over the exact window, and honestly, that debate is part of the fun. Cold stretches across Europe and Asia. Small bands of hunter-gatherers move with the seasons, following mammoths, reindeer, and wild horses across frozen ground. They carry stone-tipped spears. They build fires wherever they stop. And wherever there is a fire, there is also a mess. Bones cracked open for marrow, scraps of hide, leftover meat nobody bothered to finish. Think about what a camp like that actually smelled like. No garbage trucks, no landfill on the edge of town. Just piles of bone, hide, and fat sitting in the open air day after day, at the exact spot where humans slept, argued, and raised their kids. To a wolf's nose, that spot was a standing buffet that refilled itself every few days without a single chase, a single risk of a broken leg, or a single hoof to the skull. That messy edge of camp is where this whole story begins. Wolves already lived close to these hunting bands for a simple reason. Wolves and humans were chasing the same animals. Where a hunting party brought down a mammoth or a horse, wolves picked up the smell from miles off. Leftover meat sitting at a camp's edge meant free calories, without the danger of an actual hunt. For a hungry wolf in a brutal winter, that was tempting. But not every wolf could handle getting that close to people. Most wild animals are wired to keep their distance from anything that might kill them, and a band of humans with spears certainly qualifies. Still, wolf populations, like any population of animals, carry natural variation in temperament. Some wolves bolted at the first human voice or the first whiff of smoke. Others had calmer nervous systems. They startled less. They recovered from stress faster. They were simply built to tolerate strange, upright, tool-carrying creatures a little better than their packmates. Those calmer wolves could linger near a camp without panicking. They fed on scraps while the more fearful wolves stayed back in the tree line, watching from a distance, still hungry. Over one winter, that difference might not matter much, but stretch it across hundreds of winters and it matters a great deal. Calm wolves ate more reliably. Calm wolves survived harsh seasons better. Calm wolves raised more pups to adulthood. Generation after generation, camp-tolerant wolves multiplied, while the more anxious, more aggressive wolves lost access to that easy food source almost entirely. This is natural selection, quietly running on tameness itself. Nobody planned it. No human walked up to a wolf den and picked out the friendliest-looking pup. The wolves selected themselves, one generation at a time, simply by tolerating people well enough to eat their leftovers without dying of fear or getting speared for coming too close. Genetic research backs up this slow, unplanned timeline. Ancient DNA studies, along with physical evidence like the Bonn-Oberkassel dog burial found in Germany, dated to roughly 14,000 years ago, and the older Goyet Cave skull from Belgium, point toward a long, gradual split between wolves and the earliest dogs. Scientists still disagree on the finer details. Some evidence suggests dogs split from wolves in a single region of Eurasia. Other evidence suggests the split may have happened more than once in different places among different wolf populations. That part of the story is still being worked out in labs today, and any script claiming total certainty here would be lying to you. What the fossil record and the genetic record do agree on is the basic direction. Dogs descended from wolves, and the process took thousands of years, not a single human lifetime. Other sites add texture to the same picture. At Predmostí, in what is now the Czech Republic, archaeologists found skulls that look partway between wolf and dog, buried alongside mammoth hunter camps roughly 30,000 years old. In southern Siberia, the Predmostí cave produced a skull with a shortened snout and crowded teeth, features closer to a dog's skull than a wolf's, dated to around 33,000 years ago. Not every expert agrees these particular skulls belong on the direct family tree that led to modern dogs. Some researchers argue a few of these early, dog-like, wolves were side branches that never left descendants at all, dead ends rather than ancestors. That disagreement is normal in a field working from bone fragments and ancient DNA rather than a video recording. What matters for our purposes is the pattern repeating itself. In more than one place, among more than one wolf population, the same slow shift from wild wolf toward tame, dog-like animal appears to have been underway. As tamer wolves kept living alongside humans, something strange started happening to their bodies, something nobody was deliberately breeding for. Ears that once stood straight up began flopping over. Tails that once held stiff and straight started curling. Coats picked up patches of white, brown, and black instead of a uniform wolf gray. Skulls and teeth grew slightly smaller compared to their wild cousins. Researchers call this cluster of changes domestication syndrome. A famous mid-20th century experiment in the Soviet Union tested this idea directly, using silver foxes instead of wolves. Scientists bred foxes for one trait only: calm behavior around people, nothing about appearance. Within a handful of generations, those calm foxes started developing floppy ears, curled tails, and patchy coats anyway, just like early dogs supposedly did. Selecting for a relaxed temperament seems to drag a whole set of physical traits along with it as a side effect, tied to hormones and stress chemistry rather than looks alone. Once these camp wolves had grown tamer and more dog-like, the relationship between the two species could deepen from both directions. A calm wolf dog resting near the fire barked or growled at approaching predators before any human noticed the danger, acting as a built-in alarm system through the night. Some tracked wounded prey during hunts using a sense of smell no human could match, following blood trails through snow and brush that would have taken hunters far longer to find on foot. In return, humans tolerated these animals near the fire, tossed them food on purpose instead of by accident, and over time, likely began keeping pups born to the calmest and most useful animals in camp. The benefits on the human side went beyond convenience. A camp with a dog-like animal nearby had extra ears and a nose working through the night, at a time when the biggest threats to a sleeping family were cave hyenas, cave lions, and other large predators sharing the same landscape. Children too young to hunt or fight still needed protection while adults slept or worked, and a watchful animal by the fire helped with exactly that. On long treks across cold ground, an animal's body heat curled up next to a person was not a small comfort either. The Bonn-Oberkassel burial mentioned earlier hints at something beyond pure usefulness. That roughly 14,000-year-old dog was buried together with two humans. An analysis of its bones shows it had survived a serious illness for weeks, an illness that would have left it unable to hunt, track, or guard effectively during that stretch. Someone kept feeding and caring for a sick animal that was, for a time, giving nothing useful back. That detail suggests the bond had already stretched past simple usefulness into something closer to companionship, though how common that kind of care was across other camps is impossible to know from a single grave. That is the point where blind natural selection could have started blending with actual human choice. Just how much control early humans really had over this early breeding is still debated among archaeologists, since we have no written records from people who did not yet have writing. But by somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years ago, depending on which fossil site you trust most, something had crossed the line from wild wolf into early dog. That timing makes the dog the oldest domesticated animal by a wide margin, arriving long before goats, cattle, sheep, or the first cultivated wheat. Humans were still hunting mammoths with stone-tipped spears, still living in temporary camps instead of permanent villages, when dogs were already curling up near the fire at night. Worth noting too, the huge range of dog breeds we know today, from tiny lapdogs to massive guard dogs, is mostly a recent development, built up hard and fast by deliberate human breeding over the last few hundred years, especially the last 2 centuries. The dogs curled up by Ice Age campfires would not have looked like a poodle or a bulldog. They likely looked far closer to a generic, medium-sized wolf-like animal, with variation mostly in temperament, rather than the wild range of shapes and sizes we selectively bred for later. Once farming, wealth, and spare time gave humans the luxury of choosing appearance over pure usefulness. Here is the part worth sitting with. Every other animal humans ever domesticated, sheep, cattle, chickens, horses, arrived only after people had already settled down to farm the land. Dogs skipped that step entirely. Dogs joined human life while we were still nomads, still hunting for every meal, still thousands of years away from building the first permanent settlement. We did not invent farming, build stable villages, and then decide to add a pet to the household. A hunting partnership with a wild predator came first, built slowly around campfires and shared scraps, and everything else in human history followed after that. So the next time a dog rests its head on your leg, or perks up its ears at the sound of your key in the door, remember what that small gesture actually represents. It is the tail end of a partnership that started at the smoky edge of an Ice Age campfire, thousands of winters before cities, writing, or farms existed anywhere on Earth, between two hungry, cautious species who decided slowly, without any plan at all, that trusting each other was worth the risk. No contract, no plan. Just scraps, patience, and enough calm nerve on both sides to let the other one get a little closer than instinct said was safe.